Hello, this is part 2 of my Rey cosplay walkthrough in which I talk about how I made her arm wraps, bracer, belt and hip bag. If you want to see how I made the rest of the costume, then you can do so in part 1, which is available up here and also in the description below. And tomorrow I will be uploading part 3 in which I make Rey's staff, and once that is uploaded it will also be available up here and in the description below. Okay, so let's start with the arm wraps. For these I used cotton crepe bandages. These are 4.5 meters long and 7.5 centimeters wide, and I used one for each arm, and I used sticky back velcro to stick them. So here's one of them. Just attach it to my arm at the top and then just wrap it round anti-clockwise quite tightly, and also quite close together because I don't want my elbow to show through when I bend my arm. And then at the bottom I just have more velcro to stick it on. So there you have it. It's also the same on the other arm. It's anti-clockwise on the other arm as well. You could use another method. You could sew the bandages onto a tight sleeve and then just take the sleeve on and off, or you could tuck the bandages in instead of using velcro. And to weather these bandages I just sort of dabbed them with black acrylic paint. For the bracer I used brown leatherette, which I used for a few elements in this cosplay. You can find a pattern for the bracer online if you just image search for Rey bracer pattern. I had to modify it quite a lot for it to fit on my wrist because I have very tiny wrists, but this is what I ended up with. I recommend trying it out on paper a few times to get it right. And then I cut it out on the leatherette. I cut it out twice and stuck the pieces together back to back, and then I cut the slits from the pattern, and before the glue dried completely I put it on my wrist and let it finish drying in shape. So this is the final bracer. On the original pattern both of these bits were pointy, but I made this one curved because this is the bit that sits against the wrist and it's quite uncomfortable if it's pointy, and I weathered it by dabbing black acrylic paint around the edges with a very dry brush, which is the same method I used for the belt, and you'll see that later. And you wear it by pulling the end through the two largest slits like so, and then you bring it back on itself and wrap it around your arm, and then put the end through the remaining slits. There's two medium slits here and then the two little slits here, and then it's done and it's on the left wrist. The belt is also from a pattern which I modified to fit me. If you image search for Rey belt pattern it will turn up. Basically we have a thinner top belt and a thicker bottom belt, and the bottom belt holds the hip bag. I cut this out on one piece of the brown leatherette and then attached two pairs of metal rectangular rings to the top and bottom belt as shown on the pattern. The rings I used are 2.5 centimeters wide, and I'll link to the ones I got in the description below. So here's the belt. It has these twine bits on it. I just used Jute twine from a hardware store, and I just glued it on where it says to on the pattern. But basically on the side with the rings on you want it wrapped around both belts and then only around the bottom belt, and then on the other side you only want it on the bottom belt. You can see I painted this bit of the belt brown because this bit's visible from the outside, and I weathered the belt by dabbing around the edges with black acrylic paint on a very dry brush, the same as for the bracer. For Rey's bag I used a beige sort of canvas material. I made a pattern out of paper first and then cut the pieces out of the fabric. You can find patterns online but I didn't use one in this case. The main body of the bag has 3 large panels. It has this panel at the front, and then at the back I have 2 panels, one that's the same as the front, and then the other panel has 2 slits for the belt, and then there's this long piece here which makes up the side. So you can see here me inexpertly sewing them together. The lid's more or less the same. It's an unusual shape. It goes up on this side, then I just attached the lid at the back. For the details I attached 2 rectangular rings to the left side of the bag using strips of beige webbing. I used the same rectangular rings that I used for the belt, and then for the bag closure I used another small strip of beige webbing and sewed it to the lid of the bag on the left hand side. I used sticky back velcro to attach it to the main bag. I made this little buckle out of craft foam which I spray painted black. Now this little black thing here is an Alice clip. You can buy them, but I just decided to make an approximation of one using craft foam. Essentially it's just 2 little strips of craft foam bent into shape, and then I weathered the bag by dabbing black and brown acrylic paint onto it with a very dry brush. The bag is probably the part of this cosplay that I am least happy with, but as someone who's never attempted to make a bag before, I'm pretty impressed that it, holds things. So that's the cosplay. That's the whole cosplay we've covered now. If you have any comments or questions, do let me know below. I'll put a list of all the materials I used in the description below. But for now, let's move across to the end screen. If you want to see part 1 of this video, then you can do so below me here. After I have uploaded the final part tomorrow in which I make Rey's staff, then that will also be below me here. And if you want to subscribe to my channel or visit my website, then you can do so beside me here. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you soon.